Hello, my name is Sunny Sarah. Nice to meet you. So I decided that this week's video would be a book review because it is one of my goals for this year to read a new book every month. And so for January, I decided to read This Side of Paradise by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I read The Great Gatsby in high school. I'm sure many of you did too. I actually read it for fun in grade 11 because a lot of the example essays that my teacher used were Great Gatsby essays, and so I decided that I would read Great Gatsby early and then I had to read it in grade 12 as a mandatory reading. I liked the way it was written and I just liked it. So I decided that I would read another one by him, and on the recommendation of a friend I chose This Side of Paradise. It follows the main character, Emery Blaine, from when he is an infant to when he is 25. And there's a lot that happens in this book. It actually draws a lot on historical events, and if you look at the front of my copy, it gives you a chronology. So it gives you like literary context, author's life, so what happened in F. Scott Fitzgerald's life, and then historical events for sort of the time period of his life as well as sort of for the book. So it gives you a good historical context at the beginning of the book. Then throughout the book, the historical events are actually pulled out, and so is the literary context. That's why it has that chronology at the beginning. So the premise of this book is that this boy, he has this really flighty mother. He didn't really grow up traditionally at all. He had money, but he never really knew what to do with it. And he's sort of in love with the pursuit of things and the pursuit of love and emotions, but when he gets there, he doesn't really find himself wrapped up in it at all. He gets very like, yeah, whatever, I got here, fine, cool, like, and so it's kind of a struggle through his whole life. He calls himself an egoist. I would call him a narcissist because he is very full of himself. He does things because he feels like it's what's best for him and he wants to experience these things and doesn't really think about others all that much. I would say he's a narcissist, maybe not in the clinical sense, but definitely in the vernacular. The majority of the book is set in his sort of university years, slightly after university. So I find it does a really good job of covering kind of that time in somebody's life and like what it's like to live that experience and that kind of thing. Like, I feel like F. Scott Fitzgerald does a very good job of giving this character sort of traits that you can recognize in yourself. Like, he kind of goes through, not an existential crisis, I guess you could call it an existential crisis, where he's sort of thinking about all sorts of things and he can't figure out what he wants to do, and he's stuck flopping back and forth, and he's always been very self-interested, but all of a sudden he can't figure out what he wants, like what it is that he has an interest in, and so he gets very unhappy and very confused. And I feel like that is something that is still extraordinarily relatable today. However, there are some parts of the book where you're sitting there and like the language is kind of outdated, and there are some like not racial slurs, but like just outdated thoughts in there. However, I have to say one of my favorite parts of the book, and if you have not read the book, cover your ears and skip to the end. There's a character called Eleanor in the book, and I actually really like her because she's quite bright. She's a pursuit of Amory's, and they're together for like 2 months, I think. The summer, sort of the end of summer, 1 year of his life, and she says something that I think is speaks incredibly to the time and speaks incredibly to even now sometimes. Rotten, rotten old world, broke out Eleanor suddenly, and the wretchedest thing of all is me. Oh, why am I a girl? Why am I not as stupid? Look at you, you're stupider than I am. Not much, but some, and you can lope about and get bored and then lope somewhere else, and you can play around with girls without being involved in meshes of sentiment, and you can do anything and be justified. And here I am with the brains to do everything, and yet tied to the sinking ship of future matrimony. If I were born 100 years from now, well and good, but now what's in store for me? I have to marry. That goes without saying. Who? I'm too bright for most men, and yet I have to descend to their level and let them patronize my intellect in order to get their attention. Every year that I don't marry, I've got less of a chance for a first-class man. At best, I can have my choice of 1 or 2 cities, and of course, I have to marry into a dinner coat. I think that it's probably one of the most poignant things he says in this book. I think it kind of speaks to the generation and feeling trapped. Like, I'm sure there's intelligent women now, so there must have been intelligent women back then too, but they didn't have the opportunities we did today. And honestly, it's probably my favorite quote from the entire book. So, final review, I'm going to give it 3.5 narcissistic boys out of 5. Like, I did like it quite a bit, but at the same time, it's not the best book I've read. It's definitely not going to make my favorites list like The Great Gatsby did. So yeah, I'm going to have to rate it 3.5 out of 5. Quickly before we go, I want to give my tea recommendation for this month. I know this is kind of weird, but it's something that I love. I drink a lot of tea, and I figured that books and tea go together. I'm a tea granny, and I'm not ashamed. So here is my tea recommendation for this month. It is from David's Tea, and it is Glitter and Gold Black Tea. So if I were to turn the camera around, you would see that there is currently like 2 feet of snow on the ground here, and it's kind of getting dreary and boring. It's sort of mid-February when things start to get kind of like draggy, and you know, it just gets really boring. So I think that Glitter and Gold is kind of a nice alternative to that, because when you brew it, it has little gold balls in the tea, and it releases a gold glitter into the tea. So when you drink it, it's kind of glittery. I drink it when I'm sad because it makes me kind of happy. It has a little glitter in it, and it's pretty to look at, and it tastes really good too. So yeah, tea recommendation of the month, Glitter and Gold Black Tea from David's Tea. Now that you know a little more about me, I'd like to get to know a little more about you. So if you've read This Side of Paradise, leave your opinion in the comments down below. And if you haven't read This Side of Paradise, maybe let me know what your favorite book is or your favorite tea is for this month if you drink a lot of tea like I do. Besides that, like, favorite, comment, subscribe, and I will see you next week with a different video that I am really excited about, but I don't want to spill the beans because I'm not sure how it's going to work out yet. Okay,